Hey there, crafty friends, it's Tina from the Scrappin Rabbit blog. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel. Today we're going to be creating two spooky Halloween cards featuring the Scrappy Tales Crafts A7 Witch on the Hill cover plate die. This is an awesome set with so many possibilities. For the sentiment, I'm going to be using the new Witch's Brew stamp. There's also a coordinating die that comes with that, and it's also part of a really cool card kit available at the shop. So the first thing that I'm going to do is grab a 5x7 sheet of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm going to be using my little Distress mini inks, and I wanted to do kind of like a spooky, cool, green, ghoulish looking background. So I went to my favorites, my Distress inks that I don't have all the oxides, and even though it's much quicker to ink blend with the oxides, I still love using my little minis. So for the colors, I'm using the Twisted Citron as shown and the Mowed Lawn for the greens. And then I pulled out the gray to go around the edges, and as well as the black of the little Distress inks. Now the Distress inks take more time to do an ink blend, and mine are probably not as juicy as the newer ones are. They probably could use a little bit of a refill. So anyways, I just take my time and I go around and around, and I usually end up doing about 3 layers of ink when I'm using the Distress inks. And I also use the little sponge applicators. I like those best with the Distress inks. I keep them separate from the Distress Oxides since they kind of interact or react to each other. So I think it's best that they each have their own applicators. So again, I'm going over with the black, then I'll go and blend that out with the gray, and then with the Mowed Lawn, and then the Twisted Citron. And I do this about 3 times. And I really love how it turned out to be a little bit of a glow. I kind of wish that I went yellow in the center. I think that that could have added more color and more contrast, but instead I just went with greens and grays and blacks. But at any rate, I think that it turned out to make a really cool, spooky Halloween background. And so again, here I am doing that 3rd layer, going around and just giving it a nice smooth blend. And I want that black to contrast around the edges, so I just added another layer, and there you go. I wanted to try a different blend as well, and in this blend I'm adding blues and purples. I kind of wanted to have something with color, and so I'm to the point now where I just go with it. And so I'm doing 2 different backgrounds for basically the same card design for 2 different looks. So I chose the Twisted Citron, and then I'm also using the peacock feathers for a little bit of blue. I was kind of torn between that and the broken china, but I liked how the peacock coordinated more with this Twisted Citron. And then I grabbed my newest Villainous Purple shade, which I like. And as I'm brushing it on with my soft blending brushes, it kind of looks almost tie-dye as I'm doing it. But it's a smooth blend with the oxides, and I'm layering it on. I do feel like it takes more ink to get the black to be black than it does with the regular Distress inks. But I'm going to do a couple layers, maybe 3 layers as well. And I'm just using that piece of paper to try to keep my fingers from getting too super inky. And when I'm doing the backgrounds, there's always the point where you're looking at it thinking, I don't know how this is turning out, but if you just keep going with it and you just keep blending, it always ends up turning out amazing. I just love, love, love working with my Distress inks to make the coolest backgrounds. And this one ended up, I think, maybe being my favorite. So I'm adding in that purple, making it deeper and more rich in color. And then once I get that around, again, I'll add that peacock blue, that peacock green. It's kind of an in-between blue and green. But you can see I do take my time with this. I have this sped up quite a bit, and I'm just adding more and more layers to the colors. But the oxides, I would say that if this is something that you're looking into for the first time, they do blend much quicker and they are easier to work with. but you sometimes get somewhat of a chalky finish with it, and that does not happen with the Distress inks. So everybody's has different preferences. I personally like using both of them. I think that they both give me that nice finish that I'm looking for, and I just love how they blend. So I think maybe because I am partial to blues and purples, this one ended up being my favorite background, but I do like the way that that ghoulish green background turned out as well. So I'm just finishing that up, and now I have two different backgrounds to work with. I went ahead and cut out the frame in the Witch on the Hill cover plate die. It comes with these tombstones, and I'm not going to be using the tombstones, so I'm just going to grab my small scissors and trim them out. The witch die that comes with this set will set right there on top of it and look perfect. So that's what I did, is I cut that out, and I'm going to glue that on top, and that is going to be the die images for the card. Now I grabbed some yellow cardstock from my stash, and I'm going to glue that to the back of both the pumpkin and the bird, because it's going to make it look like the bird has these yellow glowy eyes, and it's going to look like that jack-o'-lantern is glowing as well. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue to the back of the die and adding the little yellow scraps. Really super easy way to add some layering and color to your die cuts. Now that that's complete, it'll be ready to go on my cards. But before I glue anything down, I went ahead and stamped the sentiment to the backgrounds. I am going to use lots of anti-static powder because I'm going to be embossing my sentiment. I chose the sentiment there at the top of the set, which says, "Wishing you a very haunted Halloween." I thought that that fit perfectly with the image, and I'm going to use some VersaFine black ink, and I'm going to stamp it on there really good because I have all that powder, and I want to make sure that the ink gets on there really nice. And I'm going to add some clear embossing powder to the sentiment, heat up my heat tool nice and hot, and then I'm going to melt that away. And I love, love, love the way an embossed sentiment looks. So I do have all that residual powder, and I'm just going to grab a soft cloth and dust that off. And look at how cool that turned out. I'm really happy with the way that that background looks. Once I have that ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and add some splatter. I have this little black splatter in my stash, and I want to cover up my sentiment because I don't want the splatter to go over that. And this is from Spellbinders, and it's kind of like nail polish, and I'm just going to just lightly flick some of those black spots around. I don't want it in the center of my card because I kind of want it to have that glowy look in the middle. And then I'm also going to grab some glimmer mist to add to my background because it does give it that shimmer as well. So that is now going to be set aside to dry. I'm grabbing an A7 size card base, a 5x7 card base, and gluing this panel to the front of my card that measures exactly 5x7. Now that I have that, I'm just going to smooth it out with my bone folder, grab that die, and add glue around the edges in little dots because I don't want it to ooze everywhere when I set it on top. And then I'm going to center that on my card. So it doesn't fit, it's a little bit smaller than 5x7, so you do get a little bit of a trim around this die. And then finally, I'm going to grab the witch and get her glued up on the back so that she could be the star of the show. And adding little dots along the fence, sticking that down, and I love the way that that turned out. Now the die set also comes with little spiders, a moon, bats. So I cut that moon out of some sparkly glitter cardstock, and I'm just going to go ahead and glue the little bat and the moon there, and that's shimmery. To add a little bit more sparkle, I grabbed my sparkle marker just to go over the eyes and the mouth of that jack-o'-lantern, and that completes my card. How cool is that? It's so spooky. I love spooky and cute for Halloween. So I did do the same to the other background, and so I do have two finished cards to share. So we have just the spooky green background, and then we have one that has more color. And the one that has more color looks like it's kind of glowing out of the cauldron. I don't know, that one ended up being my favorite. Well, thank you guys so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you like the way that my cards turned out. The products will all be linked in the description box below from the Scrappy Tales Crafts shop. I hope you have a fantastic day. I do appreciate your time. And until next time, everyone, happy crafting. Bye for now.